You're also a podcaster, and season 3 of your podcast, Suiting Up with Paul Rabil podcast. One of your first guests is a rarity in this business of saying yes to any interview. I know that firsthand, even though he did appear as our first NFL guest in the history of my show on Peacock last year. Is Bill Belichick. How did that happen for you, Paul? How'd that come across?
Yeah, well, similar, I guess, to co-founding a league is it's rare that maybe athletes cross over into business or media. And I don't take it lightly because you're a seasoned professional at what you do. And there's so much nuance to interviewing. There's so much nuance to building a company. But I think at the core of what we all do is this curiosity. And relationships. And so with Bill, he grew up playing lacrosse. I met him at my alma mater. Given that he's from Maryland, and we built a relationship. And when I got probably about 10 years into my career, I launched a podcast because I was tipped off by some friends around the early stages of it, but they were like, hey, you keep these interesting relationships amongst other athletes and other sports and other coaches in other sports where there isn't that traditional maybe fear or a barrier that's put up that you get from the press. And I think it's also at the moment where conversation is moving into more honesty and authenticity, and you get less of this programmable answer that you would in a typical press conference. You get that in the long-form interview because you can work them in. But with Bill, it was kind of like, hey, I remember showing up at his office because we had scheduled this podcast, and we have a lot of trust between us. And I pop open 2 mics, and I think he was expecting maybe me to record it on a phone.
Yes.
And he looked at me and he goes, so is this going to get out to a lot of people? And I said, Coach, I think it has a chance to get out to a few million people. And he was like, so we probably should hold back on the swearing. And I was like, yeah, we can do whatever you want. We pressed record, and like 30 minutes in, he's talking about how Lawrence Taylor was the greatest football player he's ever coached. And, he kind of skipped around maybe some of the disciplinary stuff that he was responsible for during his time coaching LT, but he shared some really insightful things about what it takes to be a great football player in his league.
So if I want Belichick to work blue, I tell him this is only going to be heard by about 15 people? Is that how I should go about my business?
You get into his office and you put up some, a little bit like a shady podcast kit.
Yep.
And maybe less of the glitz and glamour, all the professionalism, and you might get a little bit more out of him.
All right, good to know. Belichick thought maybe you could try out receiver? Is that what you're going to do? What would you?
I wanted to play receiver. I'll send you a clip when we get offline.
Okay.
I wanted to play receiver. He wanted me to be a strong safety. I wasn't fast enough from just a straight 40-yard dash, as right. You're quite familiar with it. But I tried to pitch him. Rich Eisen over the last 15 years has improved his 40 time. I can improve my 40 time. And we were going back and forth. I think what he was saying was, look, your size and work ethic and commitment to sport bodes better in that position. And we went back and forth. This was back when I was 23. And I was captain of Team USA at the time, and we kind of came to an agreement that it was the best decision to stay in lacrosse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.